All right. Hello, everyone. My name's Jacob Hines, and I want to start practicing my talents, I guess, if you can call them that. So I was watching this video that was insane for fun on my day off while playing games, and came across this one part where Queen absolutely steps in to own James Talarico. And oh fuck, I'm already coming off as too biased. But yeah, anyway, I'm a moderate, and believe me. So yeah, I just wanted to watch the rest of this and give some thoughts.
So I'm just a little confused that them not hiring people. Even the Trump administration had spent a lot of time creating different courts and
Okay, we're here.
Happy Valentine from 1-800-Flowers.com.
use one word to describe our relationship.
Roller coaster.
We're talking about how they are
This guy is like,
hardworking,
whatever. Like,
people who are living here in the
I need to keep some thoughts to myself.
can't become creating one. I'm talking about that's what I just.
Okay, hold on. We gotta watch this. This guy was so. We gotta watch this guy too because he was funny.
Yeah.
All right. Okay. So, you told a really horrible story. That's a very sad story. But also, they're undocumented. So this isn't
No,
just legal people who are here that came from another thing. It's
they're undocumented. That's pretty spooky, I think, right?
definitely emotional story. It makes me feel horrible for those people. I think there needs to be some better processes here. But it's
But first off, they're not even. Most undocumented immigrants are not undocumented. They have some form of paperwork and they pay taxes. So, this guy is an idiot and he's wrong.
they're still illegal, right? They're not supposed to be here. It's wrong by government standards, right?
No,
I think borders are very
it's
biblical.
not
We
wrong.
see Nehemiah, the first thing he did for his country when he returned to Israel, he built a wall, right? He built a
Okay, of course, he's a Zionist too. How's that working out in Israel right now? Nazi country of the 21st century, where the whole world is basically advocating to, you know, do unthinkable things to their capital. At this point, brilliant.
the wall to keep those that wanted to harm them out. And, I'm not saying that everyone coming here wants to harm people, but I'm
Now,
just saying
James Talarico, I watched this part already, but James Talarico is going to come in like a. He real. Like, either. You'd think this guy would know more about what he's talking about, or like at least have more confidence in what he says, but he doesn't for some reason. And it's either because he doesn't believe what he says or he doesn't know what he's talking about.
this reinforces it. And so, I feel like
I agree. I believe in borders.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in amnesty. Let's take the Vargases. We were talking about how they are sympathetic, hardworking small business owners in our community. They've been here for decades. There needs to be a path to citizenship. That is not the same thing as amnesty. Because you're right.
Is there not already a path to citizenship?
No, and that's the problem. We've got millions of people who are living here in the shadows, and there is no path for them to actually come into compliance, which I want
true.
to do. I'm a law and order Democrat. I believe that laws matter, and there should be consequences for breaking the law.
Okay.
But here's what I will say, Tyler. We do.
Crossing the border without documentation is a civil offense. At most, there should be a one-time fine, if any fine at all. because these undocumented immigrants will come in and contribute more to the American economy than they will receive in return.
Do you recognize in our legal system that there are different punishments for different kinds of offenses? There are civil offenses, like being here without documentation. There are criminal offenses, like murdering, raping someone, and those things are treated differently. And so, in my mind, and again, I'm open to negotiating how the details work, but there needs to be, in broad strokes, a pathway to citizenship where they pay a fine for being here without documentation or crossing the border illegally. There should be some.
What if they're dirt broke, dude, and they're seeking asylum? Even if they're fascists, fleeing from a socialist revolution in their country, and they lost all their wealth. What if they're dirt broke and they have nothing? Should they pay a fine then? They're seeking to build a better life. Stupid.
Penalty for that. I'm not disagreeing. They should also have to pay back taxes. Again, immigrants, undocumented immigrants in particular, pay a lot of taxes and don't get benefits in return, but they may be missing some of those taxes because they weren't citizens. They need to pay those back taxes. And they need to go through the citizenship process. They got to take the test.
I 100% agree.
They got to learn about our government. They got to learn about our culture. All that is so important. If they do all those things and they've been here a long time and they've been contributing, I think they should be brought into compliance.
You just said they need to go.
That's agreeable, but I don't think they need to go through the Ameriboo brainwashing system to get citizenship. I think they just need to prove they can work. Or not even prove that. No. You know, whatever. They just need to be able to prove they're not criminals, in my opinion.
Go through the immigration process, but then you just told me a minute ago that there is no immigration process, that they can't become citizens.
I'm talking about creating one. I'm talking about, that's what I mean.
Or not even necessarily prove, but have a record. Or give them a chance.
Into compliance, because there's not a process right now. And what you're asking is
True.
Process on the front end, how they got in here.
This guy is getting truth nuked. Look at his face. He's getting truth nuked.
Process right now. And what you're asking is the process on the front end, how they got in here. And I hear so many people say they should come in the right way. We should create a process where there is a right way.
His mind palace is getting destroyed.
I think you would agree, Tyler, that someone shouldn't wait 20 years to hear back on their application. That's not a process at all. And that encourages people to come here the wrong way. So I'm saying this is a step.
Why is this guy? This guy's shaking his head.
Come here the wrong way. So
whatever.
Systemic problem.
You've been voted out. Please return.
Great job, Tyler. Yeah. Hi. Shanice. So nice to meet you.
So I hear everything you're saying. I take disagreement with you saying like the Democrats.
She's here to educate this man.
Actually did a good job on border policy, because as an
if he's not phony, assuming he's not phony.
Under the Biden administration, where they were deporting people for having crimes of moral turpitude, you would get these notice of deportation notices in the mail. So this idea or this notion that there was just this open border plan and nothing was being done is like not true. And in terms of them not hiring people, even the Trump administration spent a lot of time creating different courts in El Paso and trying to force people to stay out of the border and make Mexico create different courts. And even the Trump administration today is still hiring judges, immigration judges, and fast-tracking people out of the country. So I don't understand what exactly you're saying, and especially when you say public safety, because if we look at what's happening, we have mass shootings that happen because of U.S. citizens, and so this conflating of illegal immigration.
Most mass shootings, immigrants make up per capita less crime than natural born U.S. citizens.
safely. I just think is like a misinformation. And as a politician, for me, I expect you to come up with an argument that makes sense. Like you said, oh,
Yes, exactly. If you're going into politics, why are you not educated on the topic? That's my biggest, like, why are you not saying the things she's saying? So people hear the things she's saying because it's the truth. They can be convinced.
okay, we want to create pathways to citizenship. Well, how do you do that for people who are illegal? We had DAPA, we had DACA that created work visas, but that wasn't a pathway to citizenship. And that's not fair to the people who have H-1B visas. That's not fair to people who have K visas for their fiancés. So I'm just a little confused as to why we would fast track people who are here undocumented and ignore people who have been waiting in the visa process line for a long time.
Well, first, thank you for your work on this topic. I want to clarify a few things. I never said that we had an open border policy. I also don't think we should fast track anybody. What I'm trying to do is create a system that works. And when I speak about the failures of both political parties, including my own, it is the failure to pass comprehensive immigration reform. And that's a failure from George W. Bush to Barack Obama to Donald Trump the first time.
Is it a failure, though? Because it's not like any of these administrations have been speaking the truth about what's happening at the border.
Joe Biden and Donald Trump the second time. What I'm saying is we should be going after the cartels, not our communities. We should be hunting down human traffickers, not moms and babies. We should be deporting.
I just can't tell if this guy is. I mean, if he's not miseducated on this stuff, then he's putting on a pretty good act, I think. I don't know.
Gang members, not small business owners.
But we did that. So,
and I think that was great to have a prioritization in terms of deportation, much better than what we have now.
but when you deported crime or people that were part of cartels, and we were doing that in like the 90s, the early 2000s, you happened to destabilize Central America, which caused an influx of immigration that we never
I
seen.
love this part. He's okay. She's saying she's speaking about the real history of what happened in South America, and then Jubilee's like, fact check, and then you read it, and they just corroborate the narrative she presents.
seen before. So this idea of like
So
let's
what's the
knock down
fact
barriers,
check? What's the fact check?
come after the cartel, I agree with, but I'm confused. You also said we had to do something about people who had been
Yes.
here undocumented.
That's right.
My question is, what does your actual comprehensive policy look like for those people who have been waiting in line?
Like I feel like the whole point of this show is kind of like fucking Jeffrey Epstein style psyop too, to make people believe there's an ideological middle ground. Or because one of their shows is called Middle Ground. But it's like, I don't know. I'm not a fan, but I'm a Texan and I gotta learn about this guy who's probably gonna be the nominee for Senate.
Yes.
Because we do have a pathway to citizenship through visas.
Yeah, like I said, I want for those that are living in the shadows, I want them to have a pathway. I'm not saying they should jump in front of anybody else. What I'm saying is we have to bring them out of the shadows because it makes us all safer and it makes us more prosperous. But I mean, you tell me, this is a conversation. You're much more of an expert in immigration law than I am. So tell me what you think that policy should look like.
I think if you do what was attempted to do for DACA and DAPA, if you've been here for 10 years or you were brought as a child and you were enrolled in school, you should have a pathway to citizenship. I do understand the fundamental policy of not breaking up families, but I don't understand how we allow their children to stay illegally. Like, do you let them say, get pathways to citizenship, and then turn around and allow their family to do the family visas and make people return back to their original country? Because we have to remember, if we do that part of it, people go to jail when they go back. We have like laws in place with different countries, especially in the Caribbean, where if you were in America illegally, you go to jail to come back. So when you go back, so there's no, to me, I don't think we should fast track undocumented workers, or I think we should probably give people work visas, but I don't agree with you necessarily getting citizenship, because why would other people take the better route, which is not to be undocumented and actually apply for a visa?
So tell me, here's where I get hung up. Tell me what we do with kids. Because I was telling you how I, as a public school teacher, taught a lot of students who were undocumented. Many of them were saved by DACA. What do we do for those kids who were brought here through no fault of their own, without their consent?
Citizenship.
This is the country they know. They know no other country.
What are we doing about their parents?
And you mentioned DAPA being an opportunity for parents. So
if we kept work visas for their parents, and allowed them to stay, and they find a pathway to citizenship, if you cross the border before you were like 6 and we can prove you were here, then I agree. But I think after that age, it gets too murky with trying.
Who cares? Why do people insist on having these fucking like arbitrary lines in the sand on policy for numbers? It's like, if someone can come here and prove they can be a productive citizen, or a member of society. It's like, who cares when they came? Give them a pathway to citizenship
To, because
if
people
you want to
constantly
build
use
up
the
this
social
country.
constructs, and so it gets harder and harder to do.
I mean, this is the beauty of public policy, right? When we step out of the algorithms and the news networks, people can sit down, even if they may be coming at it from a different point of view, and be able to hammer out a solution that actually works. And I always try to listen to the experts, because as a politician, there's no way you can be an expert in everything. And so I think you and I, some of the solutions we just talked about, that's exactly what we need to be focused on if we're going to fix the system. I think secret police is not the answer, and we have got to find a better path forward on immigration.
All right, call. You've been voted out. Please return to your seat.
It's nice to meet you. Yeah.
Whoa.
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app in Base 44.
Guys.
Hi, Terrence. Nice to meet you.
I'm kind of tough. I'm not soft.
Okay. Yeah.
So the border, I think it needs to be like closed for a while. You said that.
You can see it in his face too. It's like, oh my god, bro. What? I can't say. I'm gonna get canceled for saying what I think. Like, why are you buying this white supremacist propaganda, bro?
Immigrants are some of the most patriotic in
My students.
Your students. I think that it is black people and foundational black Americans that are the most patriotic in America. Why are we not closing the border and using the drugs that are coming in, the money that's coming in from these drugs? Why are we spending money on private schools and letting these private...
Dude, there is seriously like... These shows are so stupid. Okay, some people, we just need to, why are we not spending the money from the drugs that are coming in? I don't know, because it's a black market. Like, what? We need to seriously teach humility in school. That needs to be a class. People need to learn to know what they don't know. You know what I mean? And to like, if you don't know anything about anything, I mean, oh, he's so lost in the sauce, he can't even ask a good question. Like, that's how far we've regressed as a society.
private schools, and not putting money into the black neighborhoods and brown neighborhoods that were here for so long in America and actually built what a lot of immigrants enjoy today.
Yeah.
And what are you going to do to kind of lend a hand in that way?
Yeah, I don't think we're disagreeing that we need way more investment in our communities, particularly black neighborhoods all over Texas. But I would say that this discussion about immigration also applies to black people, because we have black immigrants. Not all immigrants that come to this country are from.
Well, let me start. Let's cut out the black immigrants.
Sure,
right now,
sure.
I'm talking about foundational black Americans
Yeah.
and foundational white Americans.
Yeah.
So I'm a native of Texas and a descendant of slavery, right? So why are we not focusing on that instead of like closing the border? I mean, these people, we're not. It's not.
These people, bro, you're racist. Okay. That's what's here. That's what's happening here.
Someone's child and mother from another country. That's that country's job, okay? If they want to put America as a dumping
Or
ground,
xenophobic, whatever word.
That's unfair to me and other foundational white Americans.
So here's where I agree with you.
Same
Way more
difference.
investment in our communities here in America.
How?
It's why I fight.
How?
It's why I fight for.
How do we need to invest in those communities?
Yeah, it's why I fight for public education in the Texas legislature. It's why I have fought to lower housing costs and provide more funding for affordable housing. Let's take education just to drill down. As you know, I was a public school teacher, so I know the system from the inside out. By the time kids show up to kindergarten, the first grade, kids who grew up in poverty are already behind their peers. Right? There are affluent peers who have enrichment opportunities, have summer camps, who hear a lot more words because they have a stay-at-home parent or a parent who can stay at home versus kids who grew up in poverty. I think the way to fix that, and this is what I've worked on in the legislature, is high-quality, universal early childhood education for every child, no matter their zip code, no matter their race, no matter how much money their parents make. Because those first 1,000 days of a child's life, those first 3 years, are the most important in terms of brain development. And if they aren't catching up in kindergarten, you know that's just going to get worse the longer they're in the public education system. And so we're setting up these students for failure. And I agree with you, these students they're children of promise. Again, they're made in the image of God. They have something to contribute. Our job is to create a system that allows them to do that. Early childhood education is a key part of it.
Are you willing to take away the money that we're putting toward bringing other immigrants in, because most immigrants take away from the jobs? A lot of people.
No, they don't. Oh my god, this show is so dumb. But it's also like a million views. Like, why are we having a guy who knows nothing about anything debating a guy who knows a little bit of something, at least, about what's happening in this country? Oh,
after they graduate college.
what is the
It's a long
use of
time for them to do that.
this? And then Jubilee won't even fact check this guy, even though he's already put out like 3 different parts of misinformation, but they were fact checking the other lady, even though she was speaking the truth. I wonder what's happening at Jubilee. Seems like there's maybe a slant here in the wrong direction.
Because most of even the idea has to be sped up in order to get that job, because an immigrant can get that job and can get that job for way less.
So we talked about where we agree, which is investment in all kinds of neighborhoods, but investment for Americans. Where we disagree, I think, is this idea that immigrants as a whole are a drain on this country. That's where I strongly disagree, because these immigrants are doing jobs that native-born Americans won't do. And here I'll give you an example.
I disagree. How do you know that?
I disagree. Why?
Who did you ask? Who did you ask to say they want that job?
Bro, are native-born Americans like, I don't want to do stereotypes, but are native-born Americans picking the crops? Like, are they in the Tyson chicken facilities? Like, please, shut the fuck up, man.
Okay, in California, he's been running this farm.
Learn to be
for
humble.
20 years. He said he has never had a native-born American apply to work for one of his jobs. And
Let
so
me ask you a question. Real quick. Okay.
This is the problem with like democracy, or like having like a libertarian style democracy. Everybody thinks they're an expert when they're actually some of the dumbest people.
How many black people are in California?
in Los Angeles or
In California total?
Or
I don't know.
not
It's
dumbest,
close to
but at
7 million.
least
He doesn't have
most
enough people
misinformed.
that need jobs in California for you to make that statement. So Texas,
not even that
Texas, more black people stay in Texas, more foundational white Americans stay in Texas.
Let's just talk holistically. There are 7 million jobs.
Holistically doesn't work for everyone.
No, I'm talking globally.
Oh my god. Holistically doesn't work for everyone. Thanks for the oxymoron. I don't know.
The economy. There are 7 million jobs that are unfilled in this country. We have more jobs than we do workers in America right now. And these are, as you know, some of the toughest jobs, right? Picking our fruit, taking care of our children and our elders, paving our highways.
I don't mean to shit on Terrence, but he walked into this conversation with a total sense of unearned confidence. Or like be too heavy on him.
Difficult, and the research shows that undocumented immigrants are really just competing against other recent immigrants.
And he's still struggling to hold on to that confidence, even though he's explaining to him this stuff.
Whether it's other industries across the country, native-born Americans will not sign up to mow our lawns. And so if we go after these immigrants, we're not just hurting them and their families and their ability to live the American dream, we're hurting the entire economy. We're hurting ourselves. And then I'll go one step further. Those immigrants go on, oftentimes, to create jobs. Half of all Fortune 500 CEOs are immigrants. A quarter of all entrepreneurs are immigrants. The research shows that immigrants and their children have a higher economic mobility rate than native-born Americans. So these are strivers. They're dreamers. They're doers. Unlike what some politicians say, in the vast majority of cases, these countries are sending their best. And they do make us stronger and richer through their military service and through doing the jobs that need to be done in this economy.
All right, pause. That's time. Please return to your seat.
Great job, Terrence. Nice to meet you. My
Okay.
first claim is that your vote matters in 2026.
Do I agree with that? As long as we can get progressives nominated. I wish we'd actually have a real leftist in the Senate race. But I don't know. I haven't actually looked into the Senate race. Because let's see. Paxton, they're challenging Cornyn. Okay. Are there any third party candidates? I hate sites like this. They literally only exist to boost these fake ass people. Make it seem like everyone who would even think about running, everyone else who thinks about running is totally irrelevant. But in a way they are because they don't have the cash to back them up, I guess. So, that's the sad state of affairs. Okay.
Hi, what's your name? Michaela.
Nice to meet you.
It's nice to meet you. Since this is a new claim, let me just kind of tell you what I'm thinking, and then I would love to open
Yeah,
this up.
of course.
When I first ran for office, I was a 28-year-old public school teacher, and I was running in a Republican district as a Democrat. And so I had to knock on literally every door in order to get elected. And I was trying to talk to my fellow young people. I'm a millennial. I was also trying to talk to Gen Z, and I kept hearing this.
Okay. How do I pause the recording? Hmm. If I stop recording here. Okay. Your vote matters. What is this topic? Oh, Tyler's back.
Is that the biggest divide in our politics is not left versus right, it's top versus bottom.
Oh. Well. Ugh. I hate this. It's both. Okay. The top is brainwashed the right. That's kind of how this goes. Or they just hire a bunch of right winger amoral people who are right wingers to do their dirty work. So this is a totally unrealistic view of politics, by the way. But I mean, as long as the top is too scared to totally crack down, then maybe it's not too unrealistic. I don't know.
Hi.
If the left calm strategy can work. Uh, I hope so. Or like left calm, just reform. And actually, you know, putting the real books back in our schools and having a cultural revolution type of shit where we punish the reactionaries for doing their genocidal propaganda. That'd be nice.
Krista, spending 8 years in the middle of this broken political system, I've come to realize that the biggest divide is between the billionaires who run this political system, who run this economy, who increasingly run this whole country, versus the rest of us, whether we're Democrats or Republicans, progressives or conservatives. And I've seen how those billionaires pit us against each other with their algorithms, with their cable news networks.
Yes, it's called divide and conquer. Which is why the left needs to be united around a class first politics. Or the bottom needs to be united around a left wing progressive working united politics to fight back against divide and conquer strategies.
They're trying to divide us by party, by race, by gender, by religion, so we don't notice that they're picking our pockets. They're closing our schools and cutting our healthcare, raising taxes on all of us while they cut taxes for themselves. So what I'm trying to do is bring us all together across all these divisions so we can take power away from them and bring it back into our communities.
Okay, I understand where you're coming from on that. And I agree that lobbying does play a big role in like some of our representatives. The more funding they get, the more they have to advertise for, their position that they want. But where I disagree on that is I believe that how can I say this? I believe that economics, like the top versus the bottom, accounts for economic inequity. But I believe ideology is where the polarization comes in. So you're a man of faith, correct?
Yeah.
So
Try to be.
you are, definitely. So wouldn't you say that your faith drives who you are as a person and your beliefs?
Absolutely. And I agree that political
I don't know. Whatever.
is a problem. What I'm trying to get us to
Are you religious? Are you the right kind of religious? This really matters for my vote if you go to church every Sunday.
realize is how these systems that we're in, a broken political system, a broken media system, a broken social media system, how that exacerbates ideological differences. Of course, we're all very different people. We're going to have different opinions, but these algorithms, these cable news networks, they fan the flames of those disagreements, and that's why we have such polarized politics, in my opinion.
So you think it's like an echo chamber, like
Yes, you should have a polarized politics. Polarization is good.
I think that these billionaires, Jeff Bezos, Mark Zuckerberg,
Polarization means people are waking up to the reality of what's going on in this country.
Elon Musk, Rupert Murdoch, the people who increasingly own traditional media and new social media, they have a vested interest in all of us being divided. Because if we recognize that we are far more alike than we are different, if we realize that we have far more in common,
Which means... Never mind.
we're going to take power back from them.
I'm a moderate.
So where I would disagree on that is there's so many economic elites. So let's just give an example. The owners of Ben and Jerry, they spend so much time on, climate change, trying to draw that back. They spend a lot of time on putting their time into charity. Let's just say like, putting it towards charity for those who are less fortunate. But we have the polar opposite, right? Let's just say the owner of Chick-fil-A, they spend a lot of their time donating to more conservative. So I would say that it's not just the elite. I believe it goes back to their ideology because we see people who are multimillionaires and they're still donating to the left. They're still donating to the right. Wouldn't you agree?
I totally agree. What I'm trying to propose is that we limit the influence of those very, very wealthy people, whether they're on the left or the right, in our political system. They can have their own opinions. There's nothing more American than having your own opinions. They shouldn't have an outsized influence on our political system. They shouldn't be able to buy politicians by the dozen.
Ban lobbying.
Here in Texas, there are two billionaires in West Texas, Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks. They basically run our state government.
Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilks are the guy, or well, Ferris Wilks at least is an oil baron, and he propped up Ben Shapiro's Daily Wire. I don't know if he had anything to do with Epstein, but he's a very Christian nationalist. The Wilks brothers. So, I mean, they are in that club, the Epstein club, for sure. But maybe they don't have too much associations with the degeneracy, just more so the racism. I don't know.
Government. I bet most Texans don't even know their names, but every member of the state Senate has taken their money. A majority of the members of the state House have taken their money. And for some of these legislators, a majority of their entire campaign contributions come from just these two billionaires. Okay. And they use that influence, they use their wealth to shift our state into a far-right direction, the most extreme abortion ban in the country.
Yeah, and they use their wealth to peddle propaganda, like to funnel money to a network of right-wing grifters that are all, backing each other up and networking with each other and, there's so much lore to this. It's hard to know where to start. But yeah, there's a con man class that all these billionaires are, have been collaborating to help prop up because they understand the need to propagandize the masses for control,
All of that is because these two billionaires have remade our state government in their own image. I'm trying to stop them from doing that. They can have their own opinions. There's Nothing wrong with that. I'm not trying to stop that. I'm trying to prevent the top 1%, these billionaire mega donors, from being able to dictate.
The problem with only stopping at letting them have their own opinions is that people can be bought. And so they will still, wield an immense amount of influence should they wish to, if they hold on to that wealth or that, unholy amount of power and wealth, which means their corrupt influence can come back into the government. So that's the issue with this kind of strategy.
Public policy in the state and in this country.
So we have the issue of, let's just say, another multimillionaire in Texas is using it for policies that you agree with. Are you going to do that on both sides, or are you just do it on a certain side? How are you going to combat that?
I'm going to limit the influence of billionaires on both sides of the aisle, whether it's a Democratic billionaire.
What if a billionaire uses his money for, well, there wouldn't be a billionaire if they were good people anyway. But
Or Republican billionaire. I think we've got to ban things like super PACs. I think we've got to even further limit campaign contributions. I think we've got to prevent lawmakers from being able to engage in insider trading and buying and selling these stocks. I think we need basic ethics reform, basic transparency, basic accountability, because when our political system works for the uber wealthy, it doesn't work for the rest of us. In fact, it hurts the rest of us. It's why we can't seem to get ahead no matter how hard we work. It's why we can't seem to afford anything, whether it's groceries or whether it's housing or healthcare or childcare. It's because the system is not built to work for us. It's built to work for those billionaires, and it's working very well for them. I think the way we fix that is by reforming our political system so that it can actually be a government of, by, and for the people again.
All right, pause. You've been voted out by the majority. Please return to
That was great. You're great. Thanks, Krista. Yes.
she at least had good questions. Or like questions that were pointing in the right direction.
World where big flavor usually means big price.
The biggest thing I just heard from this debate you were just talking about is basically billionaires are the problem. I'm curious why do you think the biggest thing I just heard from this debate you were just talking about is basically billionaires are the problem. I'm curious why do you think that they are causing the problems?
So I actually think the system is the problem.
I don't know, man. Maybe because they collude to overthrow foreign nations and steal their resources, and then sedate the masses with entertainment and slop while they, rob us blind and force people into poverty, wages, and even... Anyway, my source on that is the Epstein files. Go look into it yourself if you wish to understand that.
The system allows for those billionaires to have an outsized influence in our political conversation, in our economy, and it crowds out the rest of us, those who are working class and middle class Texans. And I want to try to right that imbalance. I think what you've seen in this country for the last 50 years is an economy that used to work for most people transform into one that only works for the uber wealthy. The richest 1% in this country now owns more wealth than the entire middle class. 3 dudes, Elon Musk.
Why are they fact checking? Wait, so this fact check makes... Wait, what is this fact check?
The richest 1% in this country now owns more wealth than the entire middle class. 3 dudes.
Okay, so it's even worse than the way he described it. The situation. The richest 1% hold 10 times more wealth than the bottom 50% of the country. Sounds like a good system to me.
Elon Musk, Mark Zuckerberg, and Jeff Bezos now own more wealth than 165 million Americans combined, and they're using that wealth to corrupt our political system. These are not the rich people of old. They're not buying yachts and jets only. They're now buying power. I mean, think about all the debates in our politics. Our schools are being defunded, so those billionaires can get our healthcare premiums are about to go up because those billionaires want another tax break. And then our Social Security, our Medicare benefits are constantly under threat because those billionaires want yet another tax break. So I'm advocating that we limit their power and we empower working Texans to be able to fulfill.
That was a good fact check, Jubilee. I just hope.
How do you propose that?
Whatever.
Because the system's been here for a long time, and I think the more important question is specifically what system? Is it the Texas system? Is it the federal system? Is it there's a lot of systems? The school system, the tax system. So
Capitalism. And this idea that you need to prioritize profit and economic growth. as a as your ideologically leading society. This idea that humans are naturally competitive, and so therefore we can live by the law of the jungle. That's the system.
So you said that we've had it for a long time. It has been a long time. It's been about 50 years. But I just want to remind you and those watching that we did have an economic system in this country that worked for the middle class. In the 1950s,
For white people. And that changed because black people fought for their rights, or for civil rights. So now white people are getting the same kind of exploitation. Which is making it so that the contradictions in capitalism are even more apparent than they were in the 60s, when the USSR was a decent alternative that offered socialized housing and, large public works and stuff like that.
the 1960s, the richest Americans paid a top marginal tax rate of 90%. I don't know if we need a tax rate that high for rich folks, but it should certainly be higher than what it is now. It's about 37% now. And so I want billionaires to pay their fair share. I don't think that George Soros should pay less as a percentage of his income in taxes than his secretary. And that's what we have now. Again, billionaires on the left, billionaires on the right. They're getting away scot-free. They are leeching the lifeblood out of this country, out of all the systems that you just mentioned. I think the only way we're going to change that is that people like you, people around the circle, people around the state, decide to come together across all of these divides, recognize that we have a lot more in common than billionaires want us to think, and take power back for our communities.
Interesting. So I've did a little research about this, and the top 5% of earners in America make about $260,000 a year. They make up for about 60% of the total federal income tax. So that's not billionaires, right?
Yeah.
So that's people who are getting by. They're doing pretty good. Yeah. But my question is, how can you affect billionaires and also still help not hurt those who are not billionaires, but maybe they have a couple million and they're also providing jobs, because we have a lot of smaller businesses that are within the 5 million.
Totally agree. We don't want to hurt small businesses. We don't want to even hurt people who are upper middle class. What we want to do is go after that 1%, actually the top 1% of that 1%.
Notice how warm it was getting?
All right. I'm back and ready to finish this. Let's go. Tyler. That's his name.
Those billionaires who run this economy and run this country. Let's just take an example. The big, ugly bill that passed a few months ago in Washington. It gave $3 trillion in tax cuts to the wealthiest Americans. Just guess what the average billionaire is going to get in terms of tax cuts from that bill.
I'm not sure.
$110,000. Again, our money, our tax dollars are going to those billionaires who don't need.
I love why they always bring up a fact check whenever it's like someone explaining a fact that favors the left. But then when this guy runs his mouth, showing he knows nothing about anything, like, they don't fact check that.
Guess what we're going to get? Regular people, what we're going to get from that bill?
Not sure.
A little over $1,000.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, and it's just like a fact that's like, even I'm having a hard time comprehending what they're saying here. And then in such a short time. So I know the people who are watching this video aren't reading it, and they're just like, hey, maybe this is wrong. What he's saying is wrong when it's not. I hate this.
Our tax dollars are going to those billionaires who don't need it. Guess what we're going to get? Regular people, what we're going to get from that bill?
Not sure.
A little over $1,000.
Okay, yeah.
To me, that feels wildly unfair. And it prevents all of us from being able to start that new business, from being able to grow the economy. It keeps us from being able to support our families and make sure that our kids are successful in school and in college and in the workforce. That is how this rigged system prevents us from achieving our potential as a country.
All right, pause. You've been voted out by
Not sure.
A little over $1,000.
Okay, yeah.
To me, that feels wildly unfair.
I'm tired,
It
so
prevents
I'm
all
just
of
as
us
lost
from
as
being able
Tyler.
to start that new business, from being able to grow the economy. It keeps us from being able to support our families and make sure that our kids are successful in school and in college and in the workforce. That is how this rigged system prevents us from achieving our potential as a country.
All right, pause. You've been voted out by majority. Please return to
Great
your
job,
seat.
Tyler.
Whoa.
What's that?
I just built a budgeting app with Base 44.
Guys, Nina just built an app.
Hi.
Hi.
Tess.
How are you, Tess?
So nice to
Good
meet you.
James. So I'm going to be straightforward honest with you.
Yeah, please.
I agree with a lot of your stance.
Sure.
I am also, my family are income household. We are in that top 3%, not one.
Yeah.
That being said, do I wish, I'm sure I'm not the only one out there.
Yeah.
Me and my family, we're not opposed to being the people who say, you know, you tax us more.
Yeah.
We're okay with that because everybody around me, everybody I know, they're going, you know, paycheck to paycheck, single parent. There's not many people we know that are as blessed as us.
Yeah.
That said, is it top to bottom that's the problem, or is it left to right? Because when you look at what's going on, I do think that there is a portion of greed that is effective in the billionaires' minds or the top 1%. But I think there's a lot of left and right when it comes into it, especially when you look at the industry that it plays into, whether it's oil or housing or whatnot. So I disagree that it's
This lady knows
not
what she's
entirely
talking
top to
about.
bottom. I think it's a good portion of it plays in the left and right.
So
They're trying to explain to our politician, the one progressive guy, how how ideology works.
here's what I want to point out. This political discourse in our country, it is controlled by those billionaires, increasingly. These for-profit social media platforms.
Yes, and they're trying to push the discourse to the right because that favors them. Thank you.
These predatory algorithms, they elevate the most extreme voices on all sides to provoke.
No, they don't. No, they don't. Do they elevate Mike from PA? Do they elevate anti-imperialist kind of figures?
Provoke our outrage because that gets more clicks and that makes them more money. It's a rage economy.
Right.
Anger sells, fear sells, hate sells. These platforms designed by those billionaires, these platforms appeal to our worst demons instead of our better angels.
They do definitely elevate Tim Pool and Ben Shapiro and PragerU because you get those ads. At least. I wonder who's paying for them. Maybe a little Jeffy Epi?
These billionaires are engineering our emotions so they can profit off of our pain. They are selling us conflict and calling it community. These platforms don't incentivize us doing what we're doing here, which is listening to each other and finding common ground. These platforms
The common ground is on the left.
want us at each other's throats because those billionaires benefit. Whether you're in the top 3%, whether you're in the bottom 3%, we have a lot more in common with each other than we do with those billionaires.
Absolutely.
And so they want us.
Yes, and that is left-wing ideology in a nutshell.
There's definitely a progressive conversation, a conservative conversation. That's been happening since the beginning of time. It's healthy. It's good. I'm worried about how these platforms, they divide us further apart so that we can't find that common ground anymore. And it's corrosive to our politics.
If you're elected senator, what are you going to try and implement and pass in order to make sure that this divide is eliminated? Because this divide is kind of tearing all of us apart.
It is. One, I want to be very honest with you. One candidate, one senator is not going to fix this.
Oh, absolutely.
This is going to be fixed by you and the people around the circle. Hopefully, running and supporting candidates who align with this purpose. But to answer your question directly about what I would want to do if I got in there, I've served for 4 terms in the State House. I've been fighting these billionaires in the trenches of the Texas legislature, and I've been bringing together Democrats and Republicans to do that. I had a bill that I filed a few sessions ago.
Gosh. He's like trying to spoil the left. It's like, no, don't go too far left. It's like his plan. It's not left-wing to be against billionaires.
It was actually a Bernie Sanders idea to bring cheap prescription drugs from
Wait,
Canada.
actually it is. He's bringing up Bernie.
Big Pharma controls our healthcare system. And I didn't think it was going to pass. But a friend of mine in the Freedom Caucus, a far-right Republican from Wichita Falls, he called me up and he was like, I really like your bill because I believe in free markets and big pharma.
I just feel like the messaging from this guy is so confusing. And I can't figure it out. Like, has he met an actual, like, socialist? Like, understood what they're saying? What they have to say?
Pharma distorts the free market.
Right.
So he and I got that bill passed through the Texas House, through the Texas Senate, and we got it signed by the governor. It is now law in the state of Texas. We're going to start importing those drugs and saving lives. So that's an example of bringing people together across a progressive and a conservative spectrum to take power away from big pharma and help all Texans, regardless of your political party, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, regardless of your
I mean, he was taking that Israel money a while ago, right? So
that's what I'm going to try to do as a U.S. Senator. I want to focus on prescription drugs. I want to focus on housing. I want to focus on childcare, all things I've worked on here. I'll just tell you, we're not going to make progress on any of those issues until we get the corruption to provoke our outrage.
Right.
Because that gets more clicks, and that makes them more money.
yeah, but people should be outraged, so I just
It's a rage economy.
Right.
Anger sells. Fear sells. Hate.
yeah, man. I mean, the president is like all over the Epstein files with some pretty gruesome graphic. Like, why do you expect people to not be mad? Yeah. Like, these people, like, either they're, like, lean into it. If you want to be effective at inspiring your base to go out and do anything for you, like, I don't want to go campaign for you until, like, maybe the last, like, maybe not even at all, after watching this video, to be honest. But like, lean into the anger. If you want to inspire people to get active and advocate for their demands, it's what Republicans do all the time.
Hate sells. These platforms designed by those billionaires, these platforms appeal to our worst demons instead of our better angels. These billionaires are engineering our emotions so they can profit off of our pain. They are selling us conflict and calling it community. These platforms don't incentivize us doing what we're doing here, which is listening to each other and finding common ground. These platforms want us at each other's throats because those billionaires benefit. Whether you're in the top 3% or whether you're in the bottom 3%, we have a lot more in common with each other than we do with those billionaires.
Absolutely.
And so they want us focused on how we're different. There's definitely a progressive conversation, a conservative conversation. That's been happening since the beginning of time. It's healthy. It's good. I'm worried about how these platforms, they divide us further apart so that we can't find that common ground anymore. And it's corrosive to our politics.
If you're elected senator,
yep.
What are you going to try and implement and pass in order to make sure that this divide is eliminated?
Yeah.
Because this divide is kind of tearing all of us apart.
It is. One, I want to be very honest with you.
I guess this video is kind of outdated because the Epstein files kind of January 2026 felt like decades where weeks happened, or weeks where decades happened.
Hopefully running and supporting candidates who align with this purpose. But to answer your question directly about what I would want to do if I got in there, I've served for 4 terms in the state house. I've been fighting these billionaires in the trenches of the Texas legislature, and I've been bringing together Democrats and Republicans to do that. I had a bill that I filed a few sessions ago. It was actually a Bernie Sanders idea to bring cheap prescription drugs from Canada to Texas. Canadians pay half of what we pay because Big Pharma controls our healthcare system. And I didn't think it was going to pass. But a friend of mine in the Freedom Caucus, a far-right Republican from Wichita Falls, he called me up and he was like, I really like your bill because I believe in free markets and Big Pharma distorts the free market. So he and I got that bill passed through the Texas House, through the Texas Senate, and we got it signed by the governor. It is now law in the state of Texas. We're going to start importing those drugs and saving lives. So that's an example of bringing people together across a progressive and a conservative spectrum to take power away from Big Pharma and help all Texans, regardless of your political party, regardless of your race, regardless of your gender, regardless of your religion. That's what I'm going to try to do as a U.S. Senator. I want to focus on prescription drugs. I want to focus on housing. I want to focus on childcare, all things I've worked on here. I'll just tell you, we're not going to make progress on any of those issues until we get the corruption out of our politics.
Absolutely.
And so the first bill I want to file, the first bill I hopefully can vote on, is comprehensive political reform to limit big money, to end things like gerrymandering, so that we can have a government that's responsive to us and not billionaires.
But when you say comprehensive government reform, specifically.
Yeah, banning super PACs. This is the biggest loophole in our campaign finance system. I also think we have to lower campaign finance contribution limits. We do have limits at the state, at the federal level. We don't have them here in Texas. I filed a bill to put them in place here in Texas. But even those limits at the federal level, they're way too high, and they are porous. There are so many loopholes, so many ways to get around them. We've got to tighten up the system so we can actually have a political system that responds to people and not billionaires. And then I want to go further on ethics and transparency. I don't think lawmakers in our nation's capital should be buying and selling stocks, especially engaging in the insider trading, which we've seen in both political parties.
Yes.
We got to end that. We got to put an outright ban on that. These are just some of my ideas, but I'm very open to others.
Sorry, pause.
Oh,
Sorry.
man. Sorry.
I apologize.
Oh,
Yes.
couple wins.
You have to go back.
So he was given his rundown there.
Oh, please return to your seat.
It was alright. At least he's pointing to corruption in the government. It's the biggest issue, for sure.
Hey, Malik.
So I do agree with a lot of things that you said earlier. As a man of faith, I feel like your heart is in the right place as well with a lot of things. I would say my only issue is we kind of talked about how using the billionaires' money that they're using, basically how they're avoiding taxes, avoiding paying money for all these things, and how people could potentially use that exact same money to start a business. My only issue with that is how many people nowadays are getting educated on how to start a business.
Yep.
And that's a very huge issue. So, okay, we can also say money is a problem, but I don't think that's necessarily what it is. And also, and I would love to be very wrong about this because I am very passionate about teachers being very underpaid.
Yes.
And you are a teacher, so I have a lot of respect just
Sure.
there in itself. But I think you would agree as well.
People are just so hoping so hard. Money is not the problem. Money is not the problem. Like, what? Like, you see what these billionaires do with their lives, thanks to the Epstein files, and you're like, I hope a lot more people are realizing that's no way to live. If you're a vampire.
Well, you even taking the step to leave that job and to now run for Senate, that's also taking a risk. And there's people that are business owners that are obviously making a lot of money.
Yeah, I mean, if you go to the biggest donor and they're like, hey, I'm charismatic and I have a law degree, so I can game. I know how to lie pretty fancy. I don't know. Feel like that's kind of how it goes nowadays, no?
And either way, they're going to find a way to avoid those taxes regardless. So, but wouldn't you agree that you leaving that safe, secure job to run for Senate, that's taking a risk, therefore, if you were now successful, you kind of deserve extra compensation for that? Would you agree?
Oh, I'm all for success. Okay. I'm not trying to demonize success.
Right.
Guess what percentage of baby boomers made more money than their parents? Just take a wild guess.
A wild guess. Ooh, I don't have a wild guess.
It was 90%.
Okay.
90% of baby boomers made more money than their parents did. They lived the American dream. It was a reality for most people in that.
Another fact check that doesn't need to be fact checked. Fact that doesn't need to be. Dude. They do this intentionally, I swear, because nobody reads this, and they're just like, oh, because their viewership doesn't read this, or they think their viewership doesn't read this, and they're just like, oh, here's a fact check, don't read it. He's right, but here's a fact check anyway, for some reason.
Generation. Guess what the is for millennials like me?
No idea.
50%. It's even lower for Gen Z. The American dream is out of reach increasingly for most people, particularly most young people in this state and across the country.
Right.
And that is not because millennials or Gen Z are more lazy or are not interested in succeeding or interested in growing and thriving.
Right.
It's because the system is rigged against us. That system over the last 50 years with trickle-down economics has just been so heavily weighted toward the people at the top, the billionaires, the mega donors, and then they use that wealth to then rig more rules for themselves. I'll give you one example. Okay. In the 1980s, they deregulated.
Yes. Okay. Yeah. Vote for him. Fuck it.
The working poor overdraft fees. So now you can charge a single mom
Explaining how corruption works in the government.
Fees a day, and they profit overwhelmingly from those fees.
Right.
So that's an
At
example
least.
of a rule, or I guess a lack of a rule, that allows for the wealthy to profit off of working people and the working poor.
Right.
These are rules we can change. They're man-made. We had better rules.
It's still hard to believe people don't know this stuff. Feels like everybody memory holes everything that happens. It's like, oh, what happened in 2008? Oh, the government bailed out the banks. Everybody else get, can eat it. Oh, why'd we go to Iraq? The oil. Now people still want to hold on to this like narrative we're doing the our leadership is doing anything good for them.
Or for trickle-down economics, we can get back to that. But it's going to take you and me and all of us coming together across these divisions to take that power back. Because they're not going to give it up. They have more money, we have more people.
Yes,
we have the majority.
I think my only thing with that is because I agree with a lot of things that you're saying. My only thing is we're talking a lot about money, but money's not throwing, regardless of if people are getting paid more, that's not going to solve the issue.
Yeah.
The thing is kind of like we were saying earlier, people that are making a lot of money maybe not teaching other people how to basically have
Like our lead.
the exact same success.
Yes.
So maybe it's not a financial issue. It's like maybe you have a lack of education on how to start that business, how to stop being a teacher. Now you're running for Senate.
Everybody can be a small business. Everybody can run for Senate, dude. Yeah, that's how we build society. No need for labor. You know, if you're just a laborer, it just means you're lazy. If you just want to work a manual labor job. Otherwise, you gotta start a small business or you're not a success.
Yeah, I think it's both, right?
Exactly.
Or run for Senate. Whatever, it's like...
And I authored a bill in the state legislature to provide financial literacy education for students in Texas. Because, you know, in addition to learning the quadratic equation or reading Shakespeare, you should also learn how the economy works and learn how to manage your money. These are skills that maybe will have more of an impact on your
Yeah, but that is not the problem here.
life, whether or not you read Shakespeare.
Money management isn't the problem. If it was, I feel like people would have a lot harder time back in the old days when everything was analog. You couldn't manage everything through an online app, you know?
And
whatever.
I think our education system has to take that into account. The problem is here in Texas and across the country, we have billionaires like Tim Dunn and Ferris Wilkes who are trying to close our public schools. We've seen public schools closing at an alarming rate.
Yeah, you guys funding Prayed for You.
All over Texas, in all kinds of communities, including in my own district, schools are closing because they're being actively defunded by those billionaires who don't believe in giving all of us an opportunity to succeed. So all I'm trying to say is that we've got to recognize that problem, and we've got to take steps as a country, working people of all stripes, of all beliefs, to take power back from those billionaires and bring it into our communities, the things that you and I...
Thank you, comrade. Take the power back. Damn, here's the plan, motherfuck. Uncle Sam.
All right, guys, that's time.
Okay.
Good job, Malik. Yeah. I think they said that I'm the first ever candidate to do the show.
Yep.
Yeah. So cool. Yeah. Maybe we'll make it to where everybody's got to come here and do this.
Yeah, I hope we start a trend.
Yeah.
It takes dedication and focus.
I'm gonna expose him if I upload this shit.
You don't have to.
I'd like to invite Krista back up to introduce her claim. Hi, good to see you again.
My claim is no matter how much gun violence happens within the state of Texas, there will never be a gun ban or gun reform.
Well, that claim is pretty gut-wrenching, given that we've had 5 of the deadliest mass shootings in American history right here in Texas. One still haunts me to this day as a former public school teacher, and that's the massacre in Uvalde, Texas, in Robb Elementary when we lost 19 babies and 2 teachers.
Cops did nothing. Let's not forget that.
I'll disagree with you on this claim, though. I saw those parents from Uvalde. I saw them make the 160-mile drive from Uvalde to the state capitol multiple times during that legislative session, demanding, begging for basic common sense gun safety. They believe in the Second Amendment, just like I do, but they knew that there needed to be some kind of regulation to keep everyone safe and protect everybody's freedoms, including the freedom of those 19 babies to live and fulfill their potential. What I saw them do just over the course of one legislative session is move the needle on a common sense bill to raise the age to buy those kind of weapons from 18 to 21. The murderer in Uvalde turned 18 the day before he committed that horrific massacre. Right. There was no Republican support for that bill. They had all the Democratic support. But they worked relentlessly. They met with Republican lawmakers, and they actually got 2 Republicans to switch their votes on the committee and get it passed out of committee. That's the first step in getting something to the floor. It didn't ultimately pass, hasn't passed yet, but there was progress toward a real solution that could save lives in the future. 2 of those Republicans decided to change their votes because of those conversations with the families in Uvalde. One of them sacrificed his seat in the next Republican primary to do the right thing by those kids and by those families. That kind of stuff, it makes me believe in humanity again, which can be really hard when you turn on the news or open up your social media timeline. But I do think that we can get common sense gun safety regulations in Texas, still honor the Second Amendment, and hopefully prevent those kind of massacres from happening in the future.
So my question is, what are you doing? I'm following your campaign, and I'm not really seeing anything on what you're doing to prevent gun violence in the future. I'm not saying ban guns or anything along those lines. Of course, I want reform. I want the legal age to be raised from 18 to 21. I myself have a 9. So I think I want to hear what you're doing. Tell me.
I appreciate that, because when I'm at these events all over the state, this is a question I get asked often, and I'm talking about gun safety a lot because it's on people's minds. And again, just like I've said many times in this debate, you shouldn't really take what I'm saying in this conversation. You should take a look at what I've done. I have a 100% pro-gun safety voting record in the state.
Yeah, I mean, it's his platform. That's what he's doing.
And if I'm elected as U.S. Senator, I'm going to fight for things like universal background checks. I'm going to fight for red flag laws so I have voted for plagiarism.
I find it challenging to believe that there will be any change. It's only a matter of time before there's another Uvalde shooting within Texas, and it's a matter of, I don't want to ban guns at all. I don't want to take away people's rights, but it's a matter of when are we going to start putting these processes in place, again, background checks, again, raising the age limit, your mind isn't even fully developed at 18.
So I would say the biggest obstacle that's preventing us from making progress and saving lives is the influence of big money on this issue. The NRA has a stranglehold on too many politicians at the federal level, but also at the state and local level. And they use that big money to prevent all of us from passing things that most Texans want, that most Americans want. The reason we can't is because the NRA has bought too many politicians. It's why I am not taking a dime of corporate PAC money in this campaign. It's why I'm not taking money from the NRA. It's why I'm not taking money from APAC. I think the number of PACs that control politicians in this country is appalling. And it's why we can't seem to move
He was taking Adelson money
forward on these issues where most of us agree.
Okay, that's interesting. I appreciate that perspective. Again, I'm not sure that, yes, of course, the NRA does play a big role with politicians and things like that, but I think it goes back to, again, ideology. I value my home. I value, my life. That's why I carry a gun with me. I live in South Dallas, and, I can't go on a walk like every day by myself, so of course I'm going to take my 9 with me just in case. I don't think it ties back to the NRA. I think it ties back to ideology.
But here's where I'll disagree, though. It can't be about ideology when everybody in the state agrees on these common sense policies. I mean, maybe there's, a handful of folks on the extremes who don't.
Yes.
But when you look at the data, the vast majority of Texans want these policies in place. So to me, then I ask the question, why can't we get it done? If most people are in agreement on the policy, then what's preventing us from making progress?
I don't know. He keeps saying the big money, the big money, the big money. What ideology does the big money want? Capitalism? Maybe we gotta change the way people start thinking about things.
Is the influence of big money like the NRA in our political system, the way they can buy politics.
Yeah, but how did that big money get so much influence?
And the way those politicians are then beholden to those groups, so they're less responsive to our needs. And
she is so mad.
All right, guys, it's time.
Oh, she's great.
When I sat down with James, didn't agree with everything, but it was a good, healthy reminder of this isn't a bad guy. This guy genuinely wants what's good, and he thinks this is the best way to go about it. And I love Surrounded, the episodes that accentuate that and remind us of that.
I mean, politicians are good at saying what you want to hear, but there were some things that I like that he's done.
Voter education needs to happen a lot more. It needs to be less a form of, I don't know how to say this nicely, indoctrination through media and social media. I think it needs to be more a presenting of the facts.
Do you think you're absolutely
100%.
Tyler realized he got duped, I think.
It's nothing against
I don't know.
Really not. It's just two things. One, I don't see a vision that changes the system
Good on Tyler.
Two, I don't see that much of a difference. I really don't.
Kudos to Tyler.
What I do to control my own life and what the government does. And so I think if I'm going to be civilly engaged, I'm going to do it in other ways other than voting. I'm wasting my time. It's 1 hour to go vote against a bunch of sheep zombies who are controlled by advertisements. And not even good advertisements, really shitty, non-nuanced arguments.
Being honest, I definitely do see myself voting. And a lot of honesty, hearing James talk, there was a lot of things that he said that I thought was great. I think on a fundamental level, we agree on a lot of things, but I think there was a lot of political talk in terms of things that he was saying and kind of dancing around conversations rather than just talking about the root cause of
Everything I'm hearing from people is saying, like, hey, we need to start pushing shit to the left. They just aren't being provided, like, any answers as to what that solution is. Like, these people are like, yeah, this guy's a good guy, and he's fighting against the bad guys. And they understand that. You know? They understand that the polarization of that isn't bad, necessarily.
This is something that I am going to push forward. I do understand that he is one person and he is not an entire body.
It isn't, because it isn't. Because a lot of our politicians are bad guys. Hombres. Okay. That's enough of me. I hope we all learned something about James. And I hope we can trust him to do what's right. Peace. Maybe I'll edit this in post if I learn how to.